Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Give us just a couple minutes to let everybody else join, and we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Give us just a couple of minutes, and we're going to make sure everybody gets joined in before we get started. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Vendor Market Conference for Emergency Preparedness, Disaster Recovery, Information Technology, Products, and Related Services. This is going to be for DIR, for the RFO for DIR, CPO, TMP 595. We're glad to have you with us today. Before we get started, let's cover a couple housekeeping items. Just a reminder that you can change your audio by switching between your computer and phone. We want to remind everybody that everybody is muted this morning, but if you have questions or if you have something to address with the group, please open your Q&A box and put your questions in there, and we'll take time to answer those at the end of the presentation. But before we get started, if you would, please raise your hands real quick and let us know that you can hear us pretty clearly this morning so we have a good audio connection. All right, thank you for that. Also, we will be making the handout available after the webinar ends. These are going to be your speakers today. We have Teresa in the Hub department. Alexis is the procurement lead. Marie is with Statewide Digital Accessibility Program. And Stephanie is the Director of Cooperative Procurements. The agenda for today, we're going to go over the scope, DIR overview, cooperative contract solicitation process, electronic and information resources, accessibilities, Hub subcontracting plan, responding to DIR solicitations, general information for vendors, next steps, discussion and questions, and then conference closing. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alexis.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Alexis Jimerson, and I will be the procurement lead for the upcoming solicitation that will be posted to the ESBD for Emergency Preparedness, Disaster Recovery, Information Technology Products, and Related Services. Next slide. The scope of this RFO, we are planning to solicit responses from potential respondents to put in place our cooperative contracts for emergency preparedness and disaster recovery products and services. Previously, we solicited these contracts under RFO DIR CPO TMP 443, which included also law enforcement products. This solicitation will not include law enforcement products. Those products will be solicited under a separate solicitation number ending in 594. And there is a upcoming pre-solicitation to be posted for that solicitation. Also, DIR will make or may make multiple awards from this RFO. From this, we expect to create contracts to satisfy the statewide procurement requirements for emergency disaster services and improve the efficiency of the procurement process. It is important to note that if you were awarded a DIR contract under the previous RFO for emergency disaster services, you will need to submit a response to this RFO in order to be considered for award for the next round of contracts. Next slide. Market engagement goals. The goal of DIR market engagements is to inform vendors of new and old solicitations. We inform the vendor community. We ask for feedback from the vendor community and we also try to promote hub vendors networking and remove some of the barriers to new vendors for submitting good solicitation responses. These market engagements also promote competition and reduce costs for the DIR customers. Next slide. DIR is looking for partners rather than vendors. A vendor is someone who promotes or exchanges goods or services for money, takes orders, and is reactive or responsive. This can be a very narrow view and does not necessarily always serve the best interest of the DIR customer. DIR wants partners that understand the agency's business needs and works collaboratively with DIR and other vendor partners to provide the best value to the state of Texas and our DIR customers. Partners listen to understand the business need and are proactive in making recommendations and see the whole picture. And these are the types of partnerships that we wish to bring on to DIR in our contract vehicles. Next slide. Partners understand the DIR customers' needs and offer best value solutions. They offer solutions and delivery methods that meet next generation customer demands and deliver on that understanding through their offerings to contribute to the overall success for DIR and its customers. Next slide. I think we skipped the slide. Okay, we're right. Questions and feedback. As mentioned at the top of the meeting, this event is designed to engage with our vendor community who may be interested in providing a response to the solicitation. We are definitely sharing information, but we want to get your feedback from this presentation. Please use the Zoom communication features to ask questions or seek clarification regarding anything that is mentioned in the meeting today. Next slide. In this portion, we're going to go over the DIR overview and talk about the different areas of DIR service delivery. Next slide. Here you see a chart breaking down the different areas of service delivery that we have at DIR. I'm going to start with the cooperative contracts because that is the section that this solicitation falls under. This area is a do-it-yourself model or self-service model where our customers go to procure hardware, software, products, and services, which can include things like deliverable-based IT contracts, staffing services, bulk purchase initiatives, and I'll talk a little bit more about those each in a little bit. The next area is communications. DIR is responsible for the Capitol Complex telephone system. If you work in an agency near the Capitol or you call your legislator, the CCT is a product of DIR. We are also responsible for the internet and network operations for the state of Texas and for all of our customers who use these services. Security operations and keeping the state secure and our operations secure for customers who utilize DIR services. These are handled through our Network Security Operations Center. The next area we'll talk about is the shared technology services. This area is a we do it for you model kind of service available for our customers. These services do require an agreement with DIR and include our data center services, the texas.gov portal. And so if you ever go on texas.gov and renew your car registration, the texas.gov portal is a product of DIR. And the Open Data Portal, which is a free state repository for public data, and security services, which are services available to help keep our customers' systems operating securely. We'll talk more in depth about these offerings in just a few minutes as well. The next area we focus on is policy and planning. DIR is responsible for the DIR is responsible for the IT strategic plan for the state of Texas, and knowing what that plan is for the next year and projecting out 3 years to maybe 5 years down the road. DIR provides IT standards for the state of Texas and is a resource for our customers to help set IT standards for their entities with and of course, we're in a legislative section. And so we now report into the legislator on the state of technology for Texas. Next slide. Here you will see a listing of some of the eligible DIR customers. We have about 130 Texas state agencies and institutions of higher education that utilize our contracts, over 6,000 local government entities, which include the cities and counties and public school districts, and various other organizations such as ERCOT, Lower Colorado, River Authority, private schools, volunteer fire departments, and some public entities outside of Texas. This list shows the possible universe of DIR customers, especially for procurement opportunities. However, not every program or area functions or serves all of these organizations. So as we explore the different DIR functions, we will indicate the relevant customer base as we go along. Next slide. Next is to go over the cooperative contract benefits. And so cooperative contracts at a high level creates savings, streamline purchasing processes, and provide benefits for our vendors. Some additional points to make here are that eligible customers utilize the buying power of the whole state of Texas. A reminder that the purchasing process gets streamlined and simplified, and the customers are able to issue POs directly to the vendor with a DIR contract noted, because we've already done a lot of the heavy lifting for the solicitation, so it reduces the purchasing time and contract cycle time. For vendors, the benefits are that you report your sales to DIR monthly. We know who you sold to, what you sold, and at what discount and price, and if any resellers or subcontractors were used. And this simplifies the sales process for vendors. and gives you access to public entities, and approximately access to up to 3 billion in sales per year. Next slide. This slide here shows the DIR cooperative contracts fiscal year 2024 sales by channel. In fiscal year 2024, customers purchased over $3 billion of products and services through the cooperative contracts program, resulting in $376 million in cost savings. The pie chart represents the sales through program by customer. Local government makes up the largest percentage of sales at 34%, followed by the state agencies at 31%, and then education K through 12 at 18%. Higher ed follows up at 15%, and the remainder of the sales come from assistance organizations and out-of-state customers. Another interesting note is that of the $3 billion in spending, approximately 21.5% was spent through our hub vendors and resellers. DIR meets our hub goal every year, and if I'm not mistaken, we were the leader this year in hub participation. Next slide. Okay, in this area, we're going to go over the cooperative contract solicitation process. Next slide. So our solicitation process consists of three large phases. We are in planning, solicitation, and then evaluation and award. We are currently in the planning phase, where we advertise the opportunity for engagement, which is part of what we're doing right now, and issue a pre-solicitation notice. Once we reach the solicitation phase, that is where we have posted the actual solicitation with the solicitation documents on the Electronic Business Daily, or ESBD, after which there will be a pre-proposal conference scheduled 1 to 2 weeks after the solicitation is posted. There will be a posted question and answer period, or rolling question and answer period, where you may submit written questions to myself through Bitstamp to be answered, and those answers will be posted on the ESBD with our official written response. The solicitation will also include response instructions and evaluation criteria. We encourage everyone to please thoroughly read through the solicitation documents so that you can submit the best response possible. In the evaluation area, we evaluate and negotiate when needed. There are administrative reviews that happen during this process, as well as anything that is identified in the solicitation as a pass-fail criteria are reviewed prior to going to evaluations. DIR at this time may reach out for clarifications to your response, or additional information for any of your company's information that may be erroneous or discrepancies are found. Next slide. And during the planning phase, we use that phase to engage with potential respondents through market engagement notices and other pre-proposal events, similar to the one that we're doing right now. We also hold a forum for incumbent and potential respondents to understand our program and our vision for the next generation of emergency preparedness contracts. And it gives us an opportunity to engage with the vendor community and potential respondents to discuss scope requirements. Next slide. The planning phase also provides us time to identify new disaster needs and categories and market changes, which we rely on you guys' feedback to alert us to. It gives us time to reflect on lessons learned and improve opportunities, and engage with all the hub partners. It gives the vendor community time to obtain reseller letters of authorization and to obtain current and accurate VPATs and develop accurate and current PDAAs. And we'll go over those in a bit. Next slide. The solicitation process. So the solicitation process, once a solicitation is posted, it will be put on the electronic state business daily. It is not considered posted until it is on the ESBD. All documents will be on the ESBD. They will not be on the DIR website. There will be a link to the ESBD, but all documents for the solicitation will be housed on the ESBD. The solicitation will include background requirements, response instructions, high-level evaluation criteria, along with key dates associated with the procurement and potential contract documents. As I stated before, this is the portion where we will do a rolling question and answer process. And we do encourage you, if something is not clear, ask a question and ask for clarity. Also to note, DIR may post addendums to the solicitation, so we encourage you to please ensure that you are monitoring the ESBD for updates on a regular basis. We encourage asking of questions. We also offer a hub review of your HSP, and we thoroughly encourage you to take advantage of that as early as possible. Don't wait till the last minute to try to submit your response, because once the deadline has reached its time, meaning if the deadline is 2 p.m., at 2 p.m., whether you've submitted your response, the system will not allow you to submit anything else. And so we encourage everyone to submit your response as early as possible so that you don't get crunched for time and locked out of the system because the time has lapsed. Also read the documents carefully to ensure you have included all required materials in your response. There are instructions and tables in the solicitation documents to assist you with this. Document any and all assumptions and include all proposed materials that customers may need to sign. This is particularly important if you are proposing software or have to have some type of license agreement signed, and you want the customers to sign it. It must be included in your response. Price anything that is solution. Things that are not priced must be clearly indicated in your response. The other thing that we also recommend during this solicitation process when responding is to propose real people, real plans, real offerings that you actually have. Generic responses do not score well and may result in your response being set aside because it did not meet competitive break. If you take exceptions, please ensure that your legal and business team work together so that the exceptions are cohesive. Extensive exceptions to our terms and conditions can result in delayed negotiations and ceased negotiations. So please bear that in mind and have substantive exceptions if you take exceptions to any of our terms and conditions. Do read the final version of your documents prior to submittal. It is unfortunate if you submit the wrong document and we cannot give you a do-over. Once the document is submitted and the solicitation deadline has passed, you cannot resubmit a document because you submitted the wrong document. So please double check your documents prior to submittal. Next slide. On this slide, we discussed designated points of contact. Please avoid any attempts to contact agency personnel not listed as a POC for the solicitation. Doing so can lead to disqualification. I, as the procurement lead, am your designated point of contact for all solicitation-related questions. You will be given some other points of contact regarding accessibility and hub questions. If you email other points of contact other than me, please make sure that you copy me so that I am aware of the communications. The second thing we have to go over is to address all response instructions. So please read the response instructions carefully. Neglecting to comply can cost you points at evaluation and can also lead to disqualification or hinder further consideration of your response. Please review your response and review it again. Don't submit an incomplete response. Make sure that you have a comprehensive package. Acknowledge all addenda posted and make sure someone with authority to bind your company responds and signs it. Another thing to bear in mind is to avoid submitting canned advertising or marketing materials as answers to pointed questions in our exhibits. Double check your submissions to make sure that you have the right answer under the right questions. Uploading incorrect information or erroneous information again can cost you points and hamper your response's overall score. Next slide. The evaluations, negotiations, and award phase. Evaluations take some time, and we ask that you be patient while we evaluate responses. DIR has the evaluation committee, and that committee has to go through each individual response and review each question. And so we want them to be allowed the time to do that thoroughly. And that is why the evaluation process may take a little time. Please ensure that during this time that you are continuing to comply with the agency interaction policy and avoid contacting DIR personnel beyond those identified in the solicitation. DIR reserves the right to conduct vendor discussions or to clarify DIR requirements or responses. We will directly notify respondents once evaluations are completed and DIR has identified apparent awardees to indicate whether they are invited to negotiations or not. And so we will tell you if you have scored above competitive break and you're being invited to negotiate, and we will tell you if you are not being invited to negotiations. It will come in a formal email. So do not panic if you do not hear from us during the evaluation period. It just means we're not complete. Please avoid excessive email or phone calls requesting updates. I will reach out to you directly if additional information is needed or we come across a clarification that is needed immediately. Next slide. Evaluations, negotiations, and awards. DIR considers any new information obtained orally or in writing throughout the process. I will mention again here that excessive exceptions to DIR's terms and conditions may result in delayed negotiations and/or no longer being considered for potential award. Also, please bear in mind, lack of response to our inquiries may result in a cease to negotiate. I cannot stress enough that when you respond, please ensure that the contact information that you put in your bid stamp account and in your response is accurate. We are not responsible because you have a group email box that nobody is monitoring and you don't receive something in a timely manner. So please, please, please ensure that the contact information that you submit is correct, valid, and you have access to it. Next slide. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Marie Cohen, and she's going to go over the digital accessibility requirements that historically usually end up being attachment G, H, and I.
Thank you, Alexis. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. My name is Marie Cohan. I am the statewide digital accessibility officer, and I'm going to go through the different documents that we require for products and services to meet accessibility requirements in the state of Texas. Next slide, please. So a little bit about digital accessibility. This is to remove barriers in technology. I'm just going to summarize it. I'm not going to read it to y'all. It's to remove barriers in technology for people with disabilities. We want to make sure that the technology we procure or the technology that we create through development does not bar anyone from accessing the information or being able to read it or interact with it. So this includes all of DIR websites and all of state websites and all state technology that we procure. The governance for digital accessibility requirements is under Texas Government Code Chapter 2054, Subchapter M. We also have requirements in Texas Administrative Code TAC 206 and TAC 213, and we follow the World Wide Web Consortium guidelines. It says WCAG 2.0 AA here. However, there was a new DOJ rule that was passed in April that bumps it up to 2.1 AA. For all web-based products, and we are still at 2.0 AA for just non-web applications. However, that is going to change in the future. So just be prepared to submit documentation that meets WCAG 2.1 AA. Next slide, please. So the three different types of documentation that you'll see in your packet is a policy-driven adoption for accessibility. This is a vendor self-assessment. It has nothing to do with your product or service offering. This is about you. We want to understand what your company is doing with regard to digital accessibility. So this is a self-assessment that you'll complete, and it provides a score at the bottom. The vendor accessibility development services information request, excuse me, is for development services. So this is anything that's customized or bespoke. Accessibility conformance report is a completed VPAT. That term is more common, the VPAT, which is just a template. We're looking for a completed VPAT that demonstrates how a product conformed to those WCAG standards I mentioned earlier. That becomes an accessibility conformance report. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just additional information. Like I said, the standard has been bumped up by the DOJ. Our agencies and institutions of higher education have the privilege to require a higher standard. So in the past, they've required 2.1 AA when the state standard was at 2.0. Now that the standard is at 2.1 AA, some of our institutions may require 2.2 AA, which is the newest standard that was passed in 2023. If a customer of DIR contacts you at any time during your contract and asks for new accessibility documentation, you need to provide that for them. Next slide, please. Policy-driven adoption for accessibility. So again, this is a vendor self-assessment. This is asking your organization what you're doing with regard to accessibility. It helps determine your accessibility maturity, and this can be used as a roadmap to improve your accessibility maturity or even start an accessibility maturity program. Questions on this form are related to how you train your staff, what kind of training they take, how do you incorporate accessibility into your business practices? Is it documented in your process and procedure manuals? Do you train your development staff or your IT staff for implementations of products, etc.? This is a spreadsheet. It needs to be completed on the spreadsheet provided. You will provide a score of 0, 1, 2, or 3 for each of the questions, and it will total at the bottom. Please do not put in check marks or X's or any other type of symbol or letter. The only acceptable answers are 0, 1, 2, or 3. And if the PDAA is missing, or if it is returned with a 0 score, it could potentially disqualify your response. So think about this as you're going through. If you have any processes in place or any policies in place in your organization that support people with disabilities, you should be able to have a score higher than 0 on your completed form. Next slide, please. This is an example of the PDAA maturity matrix. This will be included in your packet. You can see we have the different components here, and then there's a launch stage, which means that you're very early stages in your accessibility maturity. Then an integrated stage, meaning that it's woven into your company culture, into many of your business processes. And then an optimized stage means that it is part of your company culture, everything is documented, and it's monitored, and it's repeatable. Next slide, please. Okay, so accessibility conformance report or a completed VPAT. This is for all of your product offerings in your solicitation response. So any of your products that have some sort of customer or user interface will require an accessibility conformance report. What that is that you've tested your product against the VPAT, which has different WCAG standards on it and expected success criteria. Once your product is tested against those different standards, there will be a conformance level of supports, partially supports, not supported. In some cases, it may not be applicable. In some cases, it may not be tested because it's at too high of a standard, like WCAG 2.0 or WCAG 2.1 AAA. We do not require any AAA on our conformance reports. We ask that you use the VPAT template 2.3 or higher. Actually, I just submitted documentation yesterday for 2.4 or higher. So if you could complete the higher VPAT, that would be great, but we'll still accept the 2.3 or higher. And if your product does not fully conform to a specific WCAG standard, it had some issue with meeting the success criteria, please provide an explanation. Any section of the VPAT that does not have an explanation for anything that does not fully support will throw a flag or be scored down. Next slide, please. These are the examples of how a product conforms to a specific standard and success criteria. Like I said, it will either support with exceptions, not support, maybe it's not applicable for that particular feature, or it was not evaluated because it was at a AAA level. Again, if anything does not fully support, it needs to have an explanation in the explanation field. Next slide, please. This is an example of the 2.0 standard. This will get updated to the 2.1 standard. And if anyone needs those standards, you can reach out to Alexis or myself, and I can send those new standards to you. Next slide, please. The Vendor Accessibility Development Services information request is for development services. If there's any significant customization of a existing solution, that interferes or changes the user interface, then that would need to have a VATSR as well. But this is only really for development services, which I'm not sure if that's part of the solicitation, but if it is, you do need to complete this form. Next slide, please. Next slide. So these are the questions that are on the VATSR, just to go through very quickly and summarize, very similar to the PDAA, but this is specific to your development life cycle. So what kind of accessibility is built into your key business processes for development? What kind of skills and training do your developers have? We really like to see specific training programs or types of courses. For example, were they trained in JAWS? Describe your development and testing tools. How do you document defects? How do you put together your test cases? How do you correct those defects? How do you track those corrections? What kind of corrective action plans do you have in place, especially for non-compliance or in the event that there is a defect? What type of additional support can you provide? I have seen these forms with copy and paste answers. Alexis mentioned earlier, please don't take standard language from somewhere and drop it into your proposal. Please actually complete these questions if this applies to your response, and provide as much detail as you can. Next slide, please. We have information on our website. We also have training for our vendors now specific to digital accessibility. There are 4 courses. They're each about 45 minutes to an hour long, and that is free to all of our vendors responding to our solicitations. If you would like to sign up for that training, you can email me at statewide.accessibility@dir.texas.gov. Next slide, please. This concludes my presentation. If you need to reach out to me, again, you have my contact information here in your packet. Please always copy Alexis on all communications, and thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Williamson. I am the director of the Hub program here at DIR. Next slide. All vendors are required to complete and sign a Hub subcontracting plan, also known as an HSP. We'll include the link when the solicitation is released to the most current HSP located out on the comptroller's website. Next slide. Okay, the HSP is a pass or fail document, and you will be required to complete it whether you're a Hub or non-Hub. So once the solicitation is released and you've started to prepare your response, you'll decide how you will provide service under a contract. As you make these decisions, be aware of the 3 ways that you can complete an HSP. You can self-perform, meet or exceed the Hub goal and complete method A, or not meet the Hub goal and complete method B. Next slide. All right. So the Hub goal for this RFO will be 21.1%. If your proposed subcontracting meets or exceeds the Hub goal set for the RFO, you'll complete method A along with attachment A. Next slide. If you are going to subcontract below the Hub goal, you'll complete method B along with attachment B and complete the required good faith effort. You will solicit a minimum of 3 Hub certified companies and 2 minority trade organizations, allowing them all a minimum of 7 business days to respond back to you, and keeping this outreach information to include with your HSP submission. So if you're completing method B, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 4 in that method B attachment B. Next slide. And then the 3rd way is to self-perform. So if you plan to self-perform, you'll complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. And in your section 3, your self-performing justification, you'll identify how your company will fulfill a contract with its own staff, equipment, and resources. Please don't include any verbiage like subcontracting if needed in the future. Just tell us simply how you plan to perform the contract. Next slide. The hub contact information is listed here. We will answer any HSP questions that you may have, and we will also provide you with that complimentary review that Alexis said earlier of your HSP prior to the due date. Once the solicitation is open, you must contact us no later than 10 business days prior to the due date of the RFO. And when corresponding with us in the hub group, please make sure that you include Alexis in any correspondence. Thank you. Next slide.
All right, this portion, we're going to go over how to respond to DIR solicitations using the Vendor Information System, or VIS. Next slide. In order to submit a response, you must have a Bitstamp vendor information account, or in our VIS system. There is a link that will take you to the Bitstamp portal. Access to Bitstamp is by login credential only, and we create those for you. To obtain login credentials, you're going to click on "Are you a vendor and need to request an account?" button located at the login page. We have included a link here for a video on setting up your Bitstamp account. However, we're not going to show that video today. This slide deck will be posted after this meeting on the ESBD at the same spot where the pre-solicitation is posted, and you will be able to access the link to the video. Please note, if you have previously created a Bitstamp account, you can use the same account. If you have not previously created a Bitstamp account, or your account information has changed, i.e. your email, your business name, you will need to create a new account. Please be aware that this is not an automated approval process. Please allow 2 business days for your account to be approved. That being said, that means you cannot wait until the day that responses are due to try and set up your Bitstamp account. We do our best to accommodate the request, but you run the risk of not having login credentials in time to submit your response. So please, please request your Bitstamp account early. Do not wait until the day of to request credentials. Also bear in mind, with the 2 business day lead time, that DIR is not open on weekends. Our standard hours of operation are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central Time. Requests received after business hours will be treated as if they were received on the following business day. All respondents must plan and make sure that you have received your login credentials prior to the due date for the RFO. If you have not received your login credentials, please contact me, and I will check on where we are with your Bitstamp account. However, please bear in mind, if you submit your login credentials today, it will not be created tomorrow. So please reach out if it's been more than 2 business days and you have not gotten your login credentials, and I will track that down on our end and try to solve the issue. Next slide. Persons with disabilities who seek accommodation under the Americans with Disability Act in responding to the solicitation may contact the DIR solicitation point of contact, which is me. Please allow 5 business days for a response. DIR will not be liable for last-minute requests. It is advised to send your ADA accommodations as early as possible to avoid delays to you submitting your response. Next slide. On this screen, we will go over some of the landing pages that you will get to when you come into the system. Once your vendor account is enabled, you will be able to submit and manage RFO responses from your Bidstamp VIS portal login page. The portal allows up to 5 users. You must use the login credentials that you received after you set up your Bidstamp account to log in. So that being said, once you set up your account, if you have multiple personnel in your organization that need to be able to update or submit portions of your response, you can have up to 5 users. Please note, if you have an existing account, it is advised that you check your login credentials are still active at least 7 or more business days before the submission deadline. Unlocking or resetting accounts is also not an automated process. We have to do that manually. Please allow enough time for us to get through that administrative process so that you do not inadvertently miss the deadline because you are locked out of your account. Next slide. Once you've logged in, it will bring you to the page listed here. And you will be able to submit your response by clicking on Open Solicitations. Next slide. Next slide. This page will show you all of the RFOs that are open to receive responses. For this RFO, you will navigate to and select DIR CPO TMP 595. And though that will show under the RFO number tab. Next slide. On this page will display important deadlines for the solicitation and list any questions you have submitted. Please pay attention to the date and time that the responses are due. All times are Central Time. Please allow yourself enough time for technical issues. Once that date and time have passed, Bidstamp will no longer allow you to submit your response, even if you are in the middle of submitting the response. Please plan accordingly and submit your response a few days in advance of the deadline as a fail-safe for user errors. Next slide. In the RFO number detail button description, to respond to a solicitation or view the response, this is where you create a new response or view a response that is in progress. If the response has already been created or started, this button will read as view response and allow you to resume your progress on an existing RFO response. The Ask a Question button submits a question to be reviewed by a DIR resource, which is usually me. The questions can be submitted up until the question submission deadline date indicated in the RFO document and on the detail page. The Subscribe to a Solicitation button. When you subscribe to a solicitation, it sends you addendum notifications. To subscribe to the solicitation, you must select the Subscribe to Solicitation button and have enabled your contact to receive notifications. The View Solicitation Document button navigates you to the ESBD posting for solicitation and to view the solicitation documents. So as a reminder, the ESBD is the official location for all solicitation materials for the RFO. Please check the ESBD for addendums to the RFO posting throughout the open solicitation process. You will not find the documents for the solicitation in the Bidstamp portal. They are only located on the electronic state business daily. Next slide. The RFO response page. The delete button will delete all the information that has been uploaded and the response record before the response has been submitted. Once the response is submitted, you must use the withdraw button that will appear on upon solicitation submission. The submit button submits the response record and all associated information. Again, pointing out that the ask a question button, this is where you submit your questions. Create a pricing form. You must create an automated pricing form in addition to filling out the pricing form that is going to be attached to the solicitation. You must do it. If you do not do it, you may inadvertently not receive credit for your pricing form. So please make sure that you fill this out. New response documents. This is where you upload your required files indicated in the RFO. There is a vendor guide section that goes over this. The thing to note here is your response documents have a naming convention. That naming convention will be spelled out in the solicitation. Please follow the naming convention. If you do not, the character limits in the system will not let you upload your documents. You will get an error message, and it will make it a lengthy process for you to upload your response. Also, it will help remove ambiguity when identifying the correct response documents for the evaluation. We highly recommend that if you are using an electronic signature, that you ensure that when your item is converted to PDF, that it does not truncate the document or leave off any important information that is needed for the response to be considered complete. This also includes converting any documents from Word to PDF. We encourage you to submit your response in the format that the exhibits were submitted to you. If you are using an electronic signature function, please ensure that there is a valid electronic signature and not just a typed name in the signature field. It will not be considered as signed, and if signature is part of the pass-fail criteria, you will fail that portion of your response submission, and your response may be set aside. Next slide. Here we're going to go over some general information for vendors. This slide is showing you how to navigate to the Bidstamp vendor login from DIR's home webpage. When you go to dir.texas.gov, most of the information you will need is under Selling Through DIR link, located at the right side of the page. Once you click on that link, you will be taken to that page. Next slide. Schedule of solicitation opportunities page. This is where all of our current and upcoming solicitations are announced and posted. It also includes links to those postings to the ESBD. Next slide. The vendor bid stamp guide is posted on DIR's website on the schedule of solicitation opportunities page. The link is included here. Once you click on the guide, it will download and you can open it and read the PDF on how to go through the VIS system. Next slide. Here we are listing some of the top reasons evaluations and contract negotiations are delayed and terminated. These are some of the reasons your response can be set aside or cause the solicitation process to lengthen due to clarifications. Incomplete or unclear responses do not score well and may result in your response scoring below competitive break. Please ensure that you read the RFO instructions completely and answer what is asked in clear, simple language. You want to communicate clearly as your response is evaluated based on how thoroughly you answer the questions asked within the allotted page limits provided. Please think of this as a written resume of your skills, services, and products. Marketing materials are highly discouraged. Please plan ahead and tailor your responses to the questions asked in the posted exhibits. Please remember that any exceptions taken must be substantiated in our Exhibit A1 that will be provided with the response document or with the solicitation documents with an explanation and proposed alternate language redlined against standard language to be considered officially submitted. Excessive or material exceptions to our standard terms and conditions may result in a no intent or cease to negotiate notice. If a respondent fails to note any exception within its initial response submission, they will not be allowed to request an exception upon award at some later date. The other thing to remember, please ensure that your information on the public-facing profiles of the following websites is correct and up to date. Your Dun & Bradstreet profile, the Texas Secretary of State. If you are on the Texas Centralized Master Bidders List, please ensure that your contact information is up to date. I cannot stress this enough. That is the list that we use to send out solicitation notifications. If your email address is wrong, it will get sent to the wrong email address. We do not and cannot double check with you that your email addresses are correct. And the last area is the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts or CPA franchise account status is current. Please check those things because those things will cause us to have to delay negotiations, and some errors in information prevent us from awarding until they're corrected. Please note that waiting until DIR contacts you to address the discrepancies on these accounts delays our solicitation process, and failure to be able to accommodate can result in cease to negotiate notice. Next slide. Here's our open data portal site link, and we are encouraging you to please monitor the Electronic State Business Daily and the schedule of opportunities page on our DIR website. Also, we're including a link on how to do business with the state of Texas that is located on the Comptroller's webpage. Next slide. Here are the points of contact for this solicitation. Any inquiries regarding this solicitation are to come to me, Alexis Jimerson. Any bid stamp or VIS questions need to go to Stephanie Harrison. Please ensure that you CC me. Any inquiries about hub subcontracting plans or your HSP, go to Teresa Williamson or the hub group email box. Please ensure that you CC me when you contact anyone in DIR other than me. Next steps. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so the next steps, we plan to release this RFO in February of this year. The pre-solicitation conference will be approximately 1 to 2 weeks after we have posted the RFO. The link to register for that conference will be included in the RFO documents. So you may be able to access that as soon as you access the documents. RFO posting time will be approximately 45 calendar days, but we reserve the right to extend that if we deem necessary. Responses must be submitted as specified in the RFO by the submission due date. Please adhere to all point of contact in the RFO once it is posted. Until then, interested parties may contact the individuals prior mentioned as long as you copy me. Next slide. At this point, we are going to open the floor for questions and give answers.
All right, we have a couple questions in the Q&A box. The first one says, hi, is there any way to automatically receive bid solicitations from ESBD?
All vendors under the applicable commodity code on the CMBL receive a notification. So that is why I said if you are a central master bidders list, if you're on that list, please ensure your email is up to date. We are only required to notify those that are on the CMBL. So if you are not on the CMBL because you're not required to be, you have to monitor the ESBD for new postings.
Okay, and the next one says, how perform the test in the ACR?
Do you want me to jump in and answer that one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is Marie Cohan. When you're performing a test of your product, you're going to create a test script using ideally manual testing. So that means using assistive technology. Can you operate the functions with a keyboard only and not a mouse? Does your product work with a screen reader like JAWS or NVDA? So bringing in additional tools to test those functionalities in your product in addition to the automated testing. Automated testing that may come native to the application, or there's other testers you can buy that will do automated testing and just run through your product. They're only going to capture about 35% of the errors, even if they're using artificial intelligence. You'll still need to go in and test your product using some sort of assistive technology or manual function to make sure that it functions with as few errors as possible. And that's it.
All right, thank you. The next one says, what is the procedure for submitting recommendations before the RFO is released?
If you have recommendations, please send them directly to me via email. If I see that the email requires a more extensive instruction or discussion, I will then schedule a meeting to have a discussion.
Okay, the next one says, is any preference given towards Texas-based companies with offices and personnel in Texas?
Our solicitations are open to the public, so we do not give points or additional points for Texas-based companies in order to promote the best competition and best value for the state of Texas.
All right, that looks like all the questions that we had in the Q&A box. Oh, actually, there's another one. It says, how can we tell if we are registered for updates?
Can we clarify that? Registered for updates for what?
updates on timing, status, etc. for this procurement?
All updates or addenda will be posted to the ESBD. So that is where we tell you guys to please make sure to monitor the ESBD. If there is announcement as far as the change to the posted pre-solicitation, we also post those announcements on our website, but the official place to get updates is the ESBD.
So that you can, start to relate the things.
Okay, this one says the link for the 4 classes under the digital portion does not seem to be working. Please advise if link has changed.
Some of the feedback that we've seen,
if that's for accessibility, if you could please send an email to me, and Marie with the link that you're saying is not working. We'll try and help you with that. I think one of the classes, we on our end internally have to sign you up in order for the link to work, for you to get access. But don't quote me on that.
Okay, there is nothing left in the Q&A box.
All right. Well, for any questions or other inquiries prior to the posting of the RFO, please contact the personnel on the screen. And as we've stated, please ensure that if you're not emailing Alexis, you CC Alexis, so there is no confusion later on or option or risk to disqualify. The conference has ended. This presentation will be posted on the DIR website, on our YouTube page, and the copy of the slides along with the answers to the questions and attendee list will be posted on the ESBD probably within the next week. Thank you for attending.